Regulation 31, oil tankers carry different types of oil, cargo in their cargo tanks, and it often happens that after discharging the oil cargo in some port, the ship sails without any cargo to some other destination. In order to do so, it has to take ballast from the sea to get better draft and stability. For this reason, ballast to an external site is taken into cargo tanks where in general oil cargo would have been carried. It is to note that the ballast water carried in cargo to an external site. Main part of ODMCS. An ODMCS consists essentially of four systems: an oil content meter, a flow meter, a computing unit, and an overboard valve control system. Regulatory requirements for oil mixtures discharged from cargo space. Tank vessel must en route. The vessel should not be in special areas. Tankers must be 50 nautical miles away from land. Rate of discharge of oil content does not exceed 30 liters per nautical mile. Regulation 32, oil-water interface detector. What are interface detectors on ships according to IMS Resolution of Marine Environment Protection Committee 5? Oil tankers shall be provided with effective oil-water interface detectors approved by administration for a rapid and accurate determination of the oil-water interface in slop tanks and shall be available for use in the other tanks where the separation of oil and water is affected and from which it is intended to discharge effluent direct to the sea. Regulation 33, crude oil washing requirements. Understanding crude oil washing operation on oil tanker ships. Crude oil tankers play an important role in the global oil industry. What is crude oil washing or COW? Previously, oil tanks on crude oil tankers were cleaned by water, but this method of cleaning increased marine pollution and required bigger slop tanks to store leftover residue and oily water mixture. Efficient and approved COW system and equipment manual, skilled personnel on board. When the operation is under process, the inert gas values to be frequently checked. Tank pressure and O2 volume, the designated tanks as per the plan, including the washing cycle. Regulation 34, discharge in special areas. Any discharge into the sea of oil or oily mixture from the cargo area of an oil tanker shall be prohibited while in a special area. This shall not apply to discharge of clean or segregated ballast. Regulation 35, crude oil washing is a system whereby oil tanks on tanker are cleaned out between voyage not with water, but with crude oil, the cargo itself. Regulation 36, the oil record book part 2 shall be completed on each occasion on a tank-to-tank basis appropriate whenever to any following cargo. Loading of oil cargo, internal transfer of oil cargo, unloading of oil cargo, crude oil washing, ballasting of cargo tanks, cleaning of cargo tanks, discharge of dirty ballast, discharge of water from slop tanks into the disposal of residues and oily mixtures not otherwise dealt with, discharge of clean ballast contained in cargo tanks, condition of oil discharge monitoring and control system, accidental or other exceptional discharge of oil, additional operational procedures, and general remarks. Example, closing of all applicable valves after slop tank discharge. Operations of pressure testing of cargo piping or ODMCS testing etc. Guidance for entries in the ORB and environmental compliance procedures. Data should be entered by day, month, year. Incineration of landing ashore of oily garbage and used filters should be recorded in the garbage record book only. All entries are to be made and signed by officers in charge of the operation concerned. There must be no empty lines between successive entries. If a wrong entry is made in the oil record book ORB, it should be struck through with a single line in such a way that the wrong entry is still legible. Tank names and capacities must be recorded exactly as per entries in the International Oil Pollution Prevention Certificate. Although the recording quantities retained in bilge water holding tanks listed under Section 3.3 of IOPCPC Voluntary, it is recommended to the recorded with the ORB. The recording of general maintenance of items relating to OWS is also voluntary. All MARPOL equipment spares tagged as critical within PMS are to be kept aligned with the critical equipment list. Regulation 37, Shipboard Oil Pollution Emergency Plans. What is SOPEP? As mentioned earlier, SOPEP stands for Ship Oil Pollution Emergency Plan, and as per the MARPOL 7378, required under Annex I, all ships with 400 GT above must carry an oil prevention plan as per norms and guidelines laid down by International Marine. Regulation 38, Reception Facilities. IMO has recognized that provision reception facilities is crucial for effective MARPOL implementation, and the Maritime Environmental Protection Committee has strongly encouraged member states, particularly to those parties to MARPOL as port states, to fulfill their treaty obligation of providing adequate reception facilities. Regulation 39, Special requirements for fixed or floating platforms. This regulation applies to fixed or floating platforms, including drill rigs, floating production, storage of loading facilities, used for the offshore production and storage of oil, and floating storage units, used for the offshore storage of produced oil. Number 2, fixed or floating platforms when engaged in the exploration, exploitation, and associated offshore processing of seabed mineral resources, and the other platform shall comply with the requirements of this annex applicable to ships of 400 gross tonnage and above other than oil tankers.